Good morning from Ormond Beach, Florida. Sunrise report. We are about 2 or 3 minutes away from the sun rising in Santa Cruz, California. What can I tell you? I'm well rested again and had to do an early pre-record interview for Backlash on Shark Nation Radio. So, well, whatever. I'm doing it now. I can say something interesting about Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is on the beach west after, you know how the California sort of goes diagonally from San Francisco down to San Diego, then it's pretty much straight up north in the Pacific coast. So Santa Cruz is just about the last place the sun will rise in the contiguous U.S. Though, because, you know, it rises a little earlier when you go further north in Oregon and Seattle, even though it might be a little bit west there, but because, you know, we're heading toward the summer solstice, the sun rises earlier the further north you go. There actually are two places. There are places where it'll rise 2 minutes later. If you go a little bit northwest up the California coast, I forget what it's called though. They're not cities people have heard of. And Santa Cruz has been in the news lately because I like to talk about the higher education industry. And I talked yesterday for a long time about Harvard having a blacks-only graduation ceremony, and then of course they can go to the regular graduation ceremony too. So it's not separate but equal. It's separate and equal. But in UC Santa Cruz, which is not really the reason I did the video now, it's just the timing worked out, and I said, okay, the sun's rising at 9:04 Eastern time in Santa Cruz, 6:04 Santa Cruz time, and we have this. UC Santa Cruz agrees to all demands from black student group. This is not the main topic here. It just happens to be where where the sun is rising in about 1 minute there. Students protesting what they believe is a hostile climate toward black students at the University of California, Santa Cruz were locked inside an administrative building for 3 days until they scored a sweeping victory on Thursday. This is from KSBW 8, I guess is in the Bay Area. Members of the university's African Black Student Alliance organization took over Kerr Hall Tuesday, locked all of the doors, covered the windows with slogan-filled posters, and vowed to not leave until their demands were met. If the university fails us, there will be no business as usual, A/BSA told the university's newspaper. Chancellor George Blumenthal, oh great, a Jewish guy probably, sat down at a negotiating table with 10 protesters at 4 p.m. Thursday. Why are the police just not called in these situations? Blumenthal declined to negotiate inside Kerr Hall because he had received threats and feared for his safety, protesters said. Instead, blah, blah, blah. The students' primary demand was over the Rosa Parks African-themed house. Well, why is Rosa Parks African-themed? She's not African, she's African-American. As well as combating racism at the university. Sorry, I said it wrong. Racism has to be said that way to convey irony. Their demands, similar to EOP students and international students' housing guarantees, we demand that all African, Black, Caribbean identified students, oh, so it would include Rachel Dolezal, have a 4-year housing guarantee to live in the Rosa Parks African American themed house. Guaranteeing this would provide a viable living option to all. I thought diversity uber alles. No? No? I'm sure, believe me, plenty of non-black students are happy if they go to another place. I mean, we know what goes on, especially among liberals. Identified students, regardless of housing status and college affiliation. We demand a written agreement by the opening of housing applications in April 17th. We demand the university remove the beds and release the Rosa Parks African-themed house lounge so it can serve its original purpose. We demand the lounge be returned by fall 2017. We demand that the university fund the entire exterior of the Rosa Parks African American themed house being painted Pan-African, that's African AFRIKAN colors, red, green, and black. Who decided those are the African themed colors, by the way? By the start of spring quarter 2017. These Pan-African colors represent black liberation and represent our diaspora and the goals of our people. Man, one more of these, then I got to move on to the real story. We demand, this is in Santa Cruz where the sun just rose. We demand that all new incoming students from 2017 to 2018 school years forward, first years and transfers, go through a mandatory in-person diversity competency training in the event that the online module is not implemented by June 2017. We demand that the training be reviewed and approved by A, BSA board every 2 years. We demand that every incoming students complete this training by the first day of class. Well, you know, what can you say? This is college today. I'm sure the African-themed oriented students had SATs just as good as the Asian students there, right? You know? Hey, diversity, right? Isn't it great? And by the way, look, college is an anachronism. I've been saying that for a while. You can learn this stuff online. You don't have to deal with this BS. Any employer who doesn't ask questions about people who go to a place like this, well, that's their problem, but I'm sure most of the employers have diversity departments which totally sympathize with this. But that's not the main point of this. It's a tangent, and really only because of when I started this. I just said, you know, let me just check on what went on in Santa Cruz. Okay, it's a good discussion. You're welcome to keep going, but I'm talking about the more important issue, which is not exterior decorating at the Rosa Park themed house in Santa Cruz. I'm going to read you something from Grabian.com. I guess it's called Grabian News. I don't know what they are. I don't know if they lifted this from someone else. They don't put an author's name. They may have changed the title, so when I Googled it to find it again, this is what came up, and they have too many pop-up ads, so I didn't put a link there. That was a purposeful thing, but I think this is pretty worthwhile no matter what source originally published it, and no matter you know, who wrote it, because the author's name isn't given there. I just think it's worth your time, and I just don't want to pass it off as my own. So I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to read you some comments. 10 major FBI scandals on Comey's watch. And this is a great, I can only imagine the narrative that's going on CNN, etc. right now, maybe even Fox News, about like, oh, abuse of power by President Trump. So this, I think, will counteract that, the misinformation and disinformation that you're getting there. 10 major FBI scandals on Comey's watch. And then the subtitle is, the FBI interviewed almost every terrorist who successfully struck America. I don't know why that is the subtitle, but so be it. News just broke. Okay, it broke yesterday, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we don't need the introductory part. Here are 10 of Comey's biggest embarrassments at the FBI. 1. Before he bombed the Boston Marathon, the FBI interviewed Tamerlan Tsarnaev. By the way, that's bad writing, because you wrote it, it should have been Tamerlan Tsarnaev was interviewed by the FBI, if you put before he bombed the Boston Marathon before the comma. So maybe these guys are hacks who wrote it, but it still seems like good information. Let me start again. Just note that this is a poorly constructed sentence. Before he bombed the Boston Marathon, comma, the FBI, which is not he who bombed the Boston Marathon, interviewed Tamerlan Tsarnaev, but let him go. Russia sent the Obama administration a second warning, but the FBI opted against investigating him again. 2, and these are short, so I'm not going to be here that long. 2, shortly after the NSA scandal exploded in 2013, the FBI was exposed conducting its own data mining on innocent Americans. The agency, Bloomberg reported, retains that material for decades, even if no wrongdoing is found. 3, the FBI had possession of emails sent by Nidal Hassan saying he wanted to kill his fellow students to protect the Taliban, but didn't intervene. Yeah, that was terrible. Leading many critics to argue the tragedy that resulted in the death of 31 Americans at Fort Hood could have been prevented. 4, during the Obama administration, the FBI claims that 2 private jets were being used primarily for counterterrorism, when in fact they were mostly being used for Eric Holder and Robert Mueller's business and personal travel. Lock them up. You caught that? Lock them up. 5, when the FBI demanded Apple create a, quote, backdoor that would allow law enforcement agencies to unlock the cell phones of various suspects, the company refused, sparking a battle between the feds and America's biggest tech company. And that seems a little confusing if it's just that, but he explains further. What makes this incident indicative of Comey's questionable management of the agency is that A, the FBI jumped the gun, as they were indeed ultimately able to crack the San Bernardino terrorist's phone, and B, almost every other major national security figure sided with Apple, from former CIA Director General Petraeus to former CIA Director James Woolsey to former Director of the NSA, General Michael Hayden, warning that such a crack would inevitably wind up in the wrong hands. 6, in 2015, the FBI conducted a controversial raid on a Texas political meeting, fingerprinting, photographing, and seizing phones from attendees. Some in the group believe in restoring Texas as an independent constitutional republic. 7. During its investigation into Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified material, the FBI made an unusual deal in which Clinton aides were both given immunity and allowed to destroy their laptops. Crazy. 8. The father of the radical Islamist who detonated a backpack bomb in New York City in 2016 alerted the FBI to his son's radicalization. The FBI, however, cleared Ahmad Khan Rahami after a brief interview. 9. The FBI also investigated the terrorist who killed 49 people and wounded 53 more at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, really only about an hour, 15 minutes from here. Despite a more than 10-month investigation of Omar Mateen, during which Mateen admitted lying to agents, the FBI opted against pressing further and closed its case. And the 10th of 10 is CBS recently reported that when two terrorists sought to kill Americans attending the Draw Muhammad event in Garland, Texas, good work on that, by the way, Pamela Geller, the FBI not only had an understanding an attack was coming, but actually had an undercover agent traveling with the Islamists, Elton Simpson and Nadir Sufi. The FBI has refused to comment on why the agent on the scene did not intervene during the attack. Maybe it had to do with diversity training. Maybe he had, it was led by someone who went to the Rosa Parks house at Santa Cruz. I don't know. But anyhow, here are the update since this article was first published. Some select reaction from the Comey canning. Just some bullet points here. I guess these have been updated in the last hour or two. Senator Blumenthal. And by the way, look at Senator Blumenthal's war record. A real Shanta Ferdigoyim, that guy is. He's the guy who lied about his Vietnam service. A total scumbag. Connecticut Senator, need I mention, he's a Democrat. Senator Blumenthal on Comey firing. A looming constitutional crisis that's deadly serious. B. Micah Brzezinski. Obviously, we have clear concerns about the qualifications and psychology of Trump. 3. Colbert. Trump shows no gratitude to James Comey for his election win. Gotta love the statism celebrating satirists like Stephen Colbert. Democrat Senator Heinrich, I forget what state he's from, on Comey firing. This president now believes he's above the law. Never said anything of the sort about Barack Obama. And then the final bullet here is former FBI agents tell MSNBC Trump believes he has absolute power. Yeah, it was probably FBI agents that Barack Obama appointed, right? Some good comments on here. This is at the newsgrabian.com site. I just don't know them. I don't know, I just don't know what Grabian is. But these are pretty good comments, and I'm going to read them to you. Just a couple minutes more. What the mainstream media doesn't seem to understand was that their so-called messiah, Barack Hussein Obama, a.k.a. Barry Soetoro, I call him Bathhouse Barry, you know what I mean, felt he was above the law also. What do you mean also? Trump doesn't think he's above the law the way Obama does. What tangled web we leave. A double standard when there is a Republican in the White House, but not so much with a liberal Democrat in the White House. Oh, the comparison, there's no comparison. The mainstream media has been carrying Obama's water for 8 years plus. I think you could come up with a better metaphor than merely carrying the water. They still don't get the fact that elections have consequences as stated by their messiah. You Democrats lost and the GOP won. Deal with it. Response to that. Elections have consequences. I seem to recall some smug smartass saying. That would be B. Hussein. I'm a serial killer. Wrote, that's serial, S-E-R-E-A-L. Trump just put a stick of dynamite in the dam that is holding the swamp in place. Yep. Drain the swamp, baby. Drain the swamp. And by the way, look at swampdrain.com. I think that's Lindsay Michelle's website. This is when Trump won. I guess that's a Comey a moment in of us getting to know James Comey is when Trump won. So delicious today. Oh, there's a link there. Sorry, I don't know what the link is to. Anderson Cooper and Martha Raddatz, who cried on live TV when Trump won, tried to stop Hillary Rodham Clinton from responding, but Hillary Rodham Clinton insisted on rebutting, and then the winning zinger that is now coming to fruition. Oh, they're talking about the debate there when he said, "'Cause you'd be in jail." And I like this comment from Mike Gorga, which just came up. I'm going to read a couple comments here, then go back to the comments on the story. Mike Gorga writes, "Sometimes it's tough to flush the toilet when the former administration has left a massive load. Eventually the turds will be gone." Yeah. Not so hard to flush when it's diarrhea. I think you can make a case about that. Let me see if there are comments. Just, oh, that's racist from what I was saying about Santa Cruz. Hopefully it was meant ironically. A comment about Santa Cruz and the black students there. Why are they even negotiating with idiots? This generation is a mess. Parents need to pull their funding from these kids. Yeah, but I'm sure a lot of them are on scholarship. Davis Knight, the black people in Louisiana would laugh at those losers. I think Davis is making fun of me. Whoa, you're like smart. Davis Knight said that. College tuition is throwing money down the toilet these days. Go to a trade school. I don't disagree. If you're a top student, college is still worthwhile, but you know, only really for the elite colleges, or if you're majoring in a STEM subject, like, you know, but major in sociology at some politically messed up place like UC Santa Cruz, I don't know. You can bet the Asian kids are mostly studying worthwhile things, though. Okay, back to this article. Some comments. Back to Comey. His firing was long overdue, as the layers on that disgusting onion called the federal government are peeled away. The stench is going to get worse. Obama and company might want to visit some foreign islands without extradition treaties as soon as possible. And that's a comment that, you know, I've heard this a bunch of places online, that Comey was protecting Obama and Clinton, and if we get some of these people out of there, it might be easier to prosecute them. Someone else writes, not so fast. Andrew McCabe is now the de facto FBI director. He led the Clinton investigation, and his wife took $700,000 from Terry McAuliffe for her failed VA Senate run. Sounds like another firing is in order. But there's a response to that. They're going to go around him. Rare, but they can appoint anyone they want as interim. That said, they forgot a couple. They're talking about the top 10 in this list. I'll just mention a few of them. Where was the FBI investigation of the ATF forcing gun shops to allow straw man purchases for drug dealers? Where was the FBI investigation of the IRS targeting? Where was the FBI investigation of the Clinton meeting, that's Bill Clinton, with Lynch? Where is the FBI investigation into the leaks and deep state sabotage? Hopefully it's coming. All right, another comment. Maybe President Trump was saving Sheriff David Clark for something big. Oh, that would be great. That's the sheriff in Milwaukee, black guy. I think you've seen him if you've watched Fox News with any sort of regularity, or even sporadically. I believe Sheriff David Clark would make a fantastic law and order FBI director. I'd like to see him make president as well of UC Santa Cruz. That would be fun. I would pay big money to see the Democrats, rhinos, and conservatives try to counter Sheriff David Clark in confirmation hearings. To me, that would be bigger than the Super Bowl. Someone else writes, I know he's older, but our former Maricopa County, Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio would be a hell of a director. Clark would also be a hell of a pick. Someone else? Congressman and former prosecutor Trey Gowdy, please. Would love to let him sort out the Hillary Huma mess. Someone else writes, well, no, all we've gotten has been only tough talk. He has had no perp walks, so I'd say either he was colluding or weak. I think that's a comment about Gowdy. The only power Trey Gowdy has currently is to question. He cannot do anything else, and that's a response to the previous comment. Just think what he would do with power to be able to follow through on his findings. And then just some love for Trey Gowdy. Clark would be the first African-American to head the FBI. The Dems would be racist to not get behind him. So would the rhinos. Never thought about that. He's also a Democrat. I guess they're talking about Clark is a Democrat. If the Democrats refuse to confirm, Trump could say, hey, I even nominated a Democrat. What do these people want? I think that's it for the comments that I'm going to put. Just one more thing to tie it back to race and David Clark. Nope, they consider any black man not on the Democratic plantation to be an Uncle Tom. They would turn their hatred on him faster than the speed of light. I'm sure they already do hate him. Anything else? All right, most of the conversations after that are just dealing with Clark. I think you get the point. Thanks for watching.